This is LSD. Peyote. DMT. STP. Mescaline. Psilocybin. Hashish. And marijuana. That's right. Marijuana is also a psychedelic drug. Because LSD is so much more potent than the others, about 300 times as potent as marijuana, about 50 times as potent as STP, about 130 times as potent as mescaline. And because so little is known about LSD, let's talk about it first. This is the head of a pin, magnified 100 times. What you see now is 200 micrograms of LSD. That's the full dose to send a normal adult on an 8 to 12-hour trip. More than enough to do the same for 2 to 4 teenagers. There are some people who can have an LSD experience with only 25 to 35 micrograms. And we can barely see that with the naked eye. This aspirin tablet, it weighs 5 grams. Now, were it to be made only of LSD, there would be enough LSD for 165,000 people to take a real mind-bending trip. This much LSD would kill 20 people. The lethal dose is 15,000 micrograms. Now that's 1/millionth of an ounce. That's about what a particle of dust weighs.
Hi, I'm Tommy Rowe. By now it must be obvious to you, as it is to me, that LSD is very powerful stuff. And that's just what it is, stuff. It's not good, it's not bad, it's only a chemical, a drug. It's been around for about 20 years, and people have been trying it for about the last 5 or 6 years. There's some people who think that LSD is the greatest gift to mankind since Tutti Frutti ice cream. But there are many others who feel that LSD is bad news to the individual and to the world he lives in. For us to make our decisions, we'll have to listen and understand both sides before we make up our minds. While it would be very difficult to find people to tell you how good for you heroin is, or speed, or barbiturates, it's very easy to find people who just can't wait to tell you how great LSD, peyote, DMT, STP, mescaline, and of course marijuana is.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest highs on acid.
But the only time I think I've been able to understand myself was on an acid trip. Then things were really clear.
Now, I've taken LSD 42 times, and it hasn't done me any harm.
Why knock it? Some of our country's greatest minds drop acids. They couldn't all be dummies.
But everyone says when you drop some acid, the whole world becomes clear to you, like an open book.
What if you thought of it as a great adventure, a great experience, and you had someone with you for the whole trip?
I don't believe all that dumb stuff about chromosome damage. We would have seen all them deformed babies by now anyway.
That's basically what one side has to say in favor of LSD. Now let's hear what the other side has to say. Then we'll be able to make up our own minds. Let's hear from young people who have had their reasons for being down on LSD. Let's also hear from doctors, psychologists, and other experts who have tried LSD themselves, who've had a great deal of experience with LSD and the people who have taken it.
But the only time I think I've ever been able to understand myself was on an acid trip. Then things were really clear.
As a psychologist, I have to tell you that the understanding you think you have gained just doesn't fit in with the facts. Here are the facts. You've been on a number of trips, and we're both agreed that you're having even more problems with your school, your parents, and even your friends. Perhaps what you think or feel on a trip just doesn't fit in with the straight world which you must return to and must learn to live in. As far as understanding yourself is concerned, the only real understanding you could gain would come from having a bummer and then analyzing it, which would mean you'd have to want to try to have bummers and then attempt to understand them the way that psychologists analyze dreams, which, unless you are properly trained, you cannot do by yourself.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest trip on acid.
Yeah, but you can also get the wildest bummers. And you can never really be sure which it's going to be.
But what do you mean?
Nobody ever knows enough about the quality of the acid itself, or their own hidden hang-ups that would make it to be a real trip, or a real bummer.
Yeah, but you've dropped acid.
My third trip was a real bummer, enough to make me not to want to go on a fourth.
What if you were really cool when you did it? The setting's just right. You're not uptight or paranoid about getting busted. What if you think of it as a great adventure, a great experience, and you have someone with you through the whole trip, someone straight who hasn't had any acid?
Well, it could be a great experience and a great adventure if you're really in the right frame of mind. If you're sure about the dose in the can. If you could be absolutely certain there wouldn't be chromosome damage. If you won't feel guilty about what your parents would think. And if you're sure you couldn't get busted because it is against the law. But how can you be sure that for the 8 to 16 hours the trip will take, that your straight friend, your babysitter, will be reliable, will stay with you and be able to handle any problems you might get into and not have a contact trip recurrence of his own just from watching you on yours? Lots of luck.
Why knock it? Some of our country's greatest minds drop acid. They couldn't all be dummies.
Who, for example? Who's one of these great minds?
You don't understand. I keep explaining it, but you don't understand. LSD, or mescaline even, if you just let it happen, wow, you find you can really love your fellow man. Even when you come down, you can really love your fellow man.
No, I don't agree with you. I mean, what kind of a person are you if you can only love your fellow man if you've taken drugs?
But LSD and mescaline open your mind, your feelings. They make you feel you can just about love everybody.
But I always hear that, Laurie. I mean, I think kids that take a lot of acid must have some really big hang-ups. How can they be capable of loving anyone? Gee, Laurie, it's easy to say you love everybody, but it's very hard to find just one person to love.
Who says you can't love one person when you're on acid? What is there to stop you?
I say you can't. I mean, it takes over 10 hours for an LSD trip, right?
Right.
So the kids that are involved in LSD don't have time for anything but themselves. They don't have time for anybody, whether it be just one person or everyone in their lives.
You guys are just not with it. You belong back in the Dark Ages with the cavemen. How do you expect to get on in this world if you don't keep up with what's going on?
I know what's wrong with the whole world.
But everyone says when you drop some acid, the whole world becomes clear to you, like an open book.
I've got news for you. It would take more than LSD for me to understand what's wrong with the whole world, or even our local politics. Honey, you may think that you know things when you're up, but you can't really know any more than you already knew before you took the LSD.
You may have feelings with LSD about what you know, feelings you've never felt before. But you could never know what you haven't learned yet.
Evelyn, I've been trying to tell you something, but you never give me a chance.
I'm listening. Why don't you tell me what you're gonna say?
I've been thinking, we should try some acid. I hear it's a real cool trip.
Sure, and so is cocaine. But where are we gonna find that kind of money? Besides, if anyone finds out, we'll be in a lot of trouble. Man, like cocaine is a hard drug.
I'm talking about acid, dummy. LSD, not cocaine.
Don't tell me about acid. I know too many kids around here that they tell me that they've been on bad trips on LSD. They saw rats, roaches in different sizes, shapes, and colors. It was like a nightmare. That stuff ain't for me. No way.
But Mrs. Andrade, isn't it true that everybody's being uptight about those freaky chromosomes? Isn't it true that most scientists don't agree on chromosome breakage? Besides, does it matter as long as I don't drop any acid while I'm pregnant? If LSD won't kill my chromosomes, the pollution in the air and water will. So what's the difference?
The difference is we're talking about two different things. We know that if we don't take LSD, we won't damage your chromosomes. All scientists know that it's too soon to know exactly what the damage will be, especially to your children and your children's children.
But water and air pollution are killing us anyway.
Well, that could be, but I don't agree that we should just sit back, swallow some acid, and say, well, man, pollution's going to kill us anyway. This time the whole country is worried about pollution, and things are being done about it all the time. How much are we doing about it if all we do is complain and swallow a drug? Not much better than bad people doing bad things about our water and air. This world's in bad shape, but it's the world that your generation is going to have to run in the next 10 to 30 years. So what kind of preparation is LSD, STP, DMT, peyote, mescaline, or marijuana for what you're going to have to do to straighten it out?
Oh, come on. Mescaline is a natural drug. What could be wrong with something that's natural? It's made out of cactus buttons or mushrooms, or is that peyote? Well, however it's made, it's natural. And you don't get chromosome damage from something that's natural.
Maybe you don't get chromosome damage from mescaline, but are you sure there aren't any other kinds of damages? Like from a mental hang-up?
Oh, Paula, it never hurt the Indians, and they used it for thousands of years in their religious ceremonies.
Sure, I know, but for how many ceremonies a year? How many times a week? And were their minds and bodies fully developed? Or were they still kids, teenagers? And do you know whether they would wander all over the place where they could get hurt? Or just sit there safe and stoned in their teepees? And I'm sure they didn't have to cross 42nd Street and Broadway, or Sunset and Vine when they were stoned.
Well, of course not. You know they led very simple lives.
That's the point. It's much easier for one of us to develop a hang-up on a drug like mescaline. Like, it can become a crutch. There are too many people who just can't hack living in our very big and mixed-up life. You know, a drug doesn't have to do damage to your chromosomes to do damage to you.
Oh, that's an old argument.
Do you need a new one?
Well, you've seen two sides of the LSD psychedelic question. But if you really think of it, there have been about 20 sides to the question. And we've had a chance to hear that many people speak their minds. While it's possible that some things were left out, we did hear from the most important and most strongly felt opinions about LSD. Now it's your turn. Now you have to decide based on what you have learned and what you already knew. One, is it worth the risk to your mind and body to drop acid for kicks or knowledge about yourself and the world you live in? Two, are you sure you're the kind of person who will not get hung up on acid or won't go into other drugs? And three, can any of your personal problems be solved by LSD? And last and not least, will your dropping acid or other drugs do anything for anyone else in the world? Will it do anything for all those people LSD is supposed to make you love, your fellow man? You decide.
Tommy Rowe. I had to look him up. I knew that he had he was a pop singer, but he did that song Dizzy. And he did another one, Sheila, which I don't remember, but Dizzy, that's one of the ones I like. I'm not going to even try to sing it. Just look it up and watch it on your own. If I played it, of course, the copyright hammers would come down on me. So, Focus on LSD, there was a series of these focus-ons made by American Educational Films. And this one is my favorite because that little kid who's like 13 is like, I really learned about myself on LSD. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know, man. You haven't even lived a life to know what your life is about at age 13. Either that or he was a very young-looking 20-year-old. So drug films are not always my favorite to show. They're kind of, I always feel like they're shooting fish in a barrel. They're so easy to entertain, and the rhetoric is it's just the same over and over again. So, but you know, I'll happily show them to you guys, and they're so popular. Speaking of drugs, there was a series of films that came out in the 70s featuring a character, Uncle Smiley. Uncle Smiley was a bald, kind of heavy guy who wore overalls, had a big beard, and was kind of a slapstick guy who somehow taught us about ecological concerns through falling down. Anyways, if you've seen him, he'll be in your subconscious, and I've had people who requested to see him again. I did this as a show, part of a show called The Last Time We Were Green, that kind of talks about recycling. And yeah, this is it's filled with some hippy dippy songs, some folksy songs, and talks about recycling, but also has some slapstick. So here's Uncle Smiley Goes Recycling.
Who is the one when the school day is done that the kids always run to? It's Uncle Smiley. Whose is the place where the kids always race? They've got no time to waste when it's Uncle Smiley. Uncle's the one who's always busy, they know. Too busy working to get up and go. But Uncle who can never say no. So Uncle Smiley, get up and go. He's a barrel of doubt, here he comes. It's Uncle Smiley, stumbling around like a carnival clown. He's the pride of the town, he's our Uncle Smiley. When there's a job to be done, old Uncle is always the one. No matter what happens, it's bound to be fun. So Uncle Smiley, get up and go. So Uncle Smiley, get up and go.
Hey, you should have been with us last week when Uncle Smiley took us recycling. Took you where? Recycling. Hey, I'll bet you don't even know what recycling is. Sure I do. What is it then? Well, it's sort of like riding a bicycle backwards. Wow, that's dumb. Well, what is it then? Know-it-all. Recycling means taking trash and junk and turning it back into usable things again. Did you know, for example, that the stuff newspapers and bottles and aluminum cans are made of can be used over and over again? How can you do that? With special machines and furnaces and things that'll melt down metal and crush glass and things like that. How do you know? Everybody knows, silly. Uncle Smiley told us all about it. He knows a lot about recycling.
Today we're going on the town. Gonna gather lots of different things that can be found. Maybe we'll stop by to say hello and howdy do. If you'd like to join with us, we've got the job for you. Call your friends and relatives and people that you know. Tell them that you might be stopping by to say hello. If they've got a box or two of old aluminum cans, or no deposit bottles, never mind about the brands. Oh, 'cause a bottle's always made of glass and paper is made of wood. Some cans are aluminum and aluminum is always good. There are places for recycling these and many more. And recycling is the thing the world needs more and more. Have you ever stopped to wonder just how many trees it takes to make the daily papers people always read? Every book of wood, you see. And wood is just another name for what was once a tree. So won't you bring your wagons and carts and paper bags, bring your buckets and canvas stacks. We're collecting old cans and dirty pans, bottles, rubber and paper stacks. Recycling, recycling, pull your wagon from door to door. Recycling, recycling, using things we've used before.
Uncle was sure worried about his car. So were we, but his car was just sick. When cars and trucks get sick and start making all that smoke, they make everything else around them sick too. You can't guess what we're gonna do here. Bet you think we're gonna ride on the swings or slides or something, huh? Well, why not? It's a playground, isn't it? Yeah, but we're here to gather up stuff for recycling. It's filled with all kinds of trash and stuff that kids have thrown away. They're almost as bad as grown-ups sometimes. Says who? Says me. Listen, lots of trash isn't really trash at all because it can be made into new things again. Actually, everything could be used again if people really wanted to. How can you tell what's trash and what can be recycled? Well, first you've got to know what something's made of. Take cans, for instance. They can be made of aluminum or steel, or even both together sometimes. How do you tell them apart? Well, a steel can has a big seam down the side and a big ridge around the top and bottom where it was put together. An all-aluminum can is made in one piece and doesn't have a ridge or a big seam down the side. Besides, aluminum cans usually say so right on the can, if you can read. I can read all right. Tabs are important things to recycle too, and people just throw them all over the place. Pretty soon, they'll cover the grass and roads and everything in the world. What about bottles? They're all recyclable, even throwaway ones. Just make sure you get all the metal off from around the top of the bottles. Pliers are good for that, and take off the paper too. You can't mix up the glass with metal or paper. What are you going to do with old tires? Different companies are trying to see if they can be used to build roads. Yeah? Yeah.
Won't you come with us today? We're going on the town. Gonna gather lots of different things that can be found. Maybe we'll stop by to say hello and howdy do. If you'd like to join with us, we've got the job for you. There are many things that people usually throw away. Things the garbage man comes in his truck to haul away. Thrown together in a pile of piling garbage cans. No one wants to take the time or touch them with their hands. But these are often things that can be used and used and used again. A things that can be crushed or melted down to start again. There's no need to take your trash, just simply throw away. Everybody's learning how recycling can pay. So won't you bring your wagons and carts and paper bags, bring your buckets and canvas sacks. We're collecting old cans and dirty pants, bottles, rubber and paper stacks. Recycling, recycling, pull your wagon from door to door. Recycling, recycling, using things we've used before. When you see an old can on the street, what do you do? Do you kick it further down the street like many do? Do you simply pass it by and leave it lying there? Let me tell you what to do now if you really care. So won't you bring your wagons and carts and paper bags, bring your buckets and canvas sacks. We're collecting old cans and dirty pants, bottles, rubber and paper stacks. Recycling, recycling, pull your wagon from door to door. Recycling, recycling, using things we've used before.
Well, here we are at the recycling pickup station. From here, everything gets collected in trucks and hauled off to the recycling plants, where it gets converted back into usable stuff again. Uncle Smiley knew the station manager. He was a nice man, and he helped us unload all our things.
Won't you come with us today? We're going on the town. Gonna gather lots of different things that can be found. Maybe we'll stop by to say hello and howdy do. If you'd like to join with us, we've got the job for you. So won't you bring your wagons and carts and paper bags, bring your buckets and canvas sacks. We're collecting old cans and dirty pants, bottles, rubber and paper stacks. Recycling, recycling, pull your wagon from door to door. Recycling, recycling, using things we've used before.
The station manager's job is to make sure that all the stuff goes with the right bin and doesn't get mixed up. Boy, if he had seen some of the mix-ups we'd been in that day, he'd probably closed up early and left before we got there. With Uncle Smiley along, you can be sure that there'll never be a dull moment. Are you through now? Well, yeah, that was the end of our trip. Thank goodness. Whew.
Uncle Smiley, man. So I was doing some research on the person who played Uncle Smiley. His name is Horace Gass, with 2 S's. And at one point, I actually met one of the children that was in the film, Rain Burrows, and her father was Jim Burrows, who produced a lot of educational films and actually wrote a lot of the music. And I'm friends with Jim on Facebook, or at least I was at one point. Still friends with Rain. She's based in Virginia. Anyway, so I met her, and we talked about that Horace, Uncle Smiley, was good friends with Jim. And at some point, Horace moved to Maine and lived in a bus, out in the woods, and supposedly had never really held a job his entire life. And she gave me his phone number, which I did not call. This is where I get cold feet, and this is where folks like some of my guests, like Kayla Janice, she would call him. I had this idea of who he was, and I didn't want to delve too deep to find out where he was now. It sounded like it potentially could be a sad story. And somebody, I was just doing research to see, is he still around or what the deal is? And somebody did a short documentary about Uncle Smiley. It was like a classroom documentary. And in the comments, somebody said that he had passed away in 2013, but I can't find any other indication of that. But anyways, there's quite a few Uncle Smiley films. There's several of them, including Uncle Smiley Goes Up the River, Uncle Smiley Goes Camping. I can't remember if I have those digitized, but we might bust some of those out at some point. Yeah. So over the last couple of days, we've been showing some safety films, industrial safety films. And this next film is great. It's not gory, but it does hint at some pretty horrible things, including that thing that I was talking about. It was the film Winners and Losers, which was about fork trucks, forklifts, how wonderful they are, but also how incredibly dangerous they are. And so this film has some crazy footage of people getting hurt working. It's all faked, but it's still pretty intense. And there's some pretty crazy. I feel like this is the one that has the crazy U.S. Post Office footage of people falling downstairs and somebody flipping around in a postal truck. So here's The Risk Taker. Working. It's all faked, but it's still pretty intense. And there's some pretty crazy. I feel like this is the one that has the crazy.
There are almost 2 million on-the-job injuries and deaths each year. Most of them are caused by unnecessary risks.
So here's The Risk Taker.
This is the story of one of them.
You ought to wear this suit to work after the wedding, Eddie. Give the guys at the warehouse a real laugh.
In the week before young Eddie Jones' wedding, Gil Greenlee helped him with his tux.
Speaking of something to wear, look what the guys and I made for you.
Gave him a custom-made hard hat from his well-wishing friends, arranged for the bachelor party, practiced his toast for the wedding reception.
I'd like to propose a toast to the bride and groom.
And put in his pre-wedding Friday afternoon working with Eddie, just as he usually did.
Hey, Eddie, take a look. Bad brakes.
So stop driving this thing and get them fixed before you hurt yourself.
Look, I'm not the only one who drives this thing, and if the guy before me didn't red tag it, why should I? Anyhow, the brakes aren't that bad. Now, come on and load this thing so we can get out of here for your party tonight. Great hard hat.
As reported later, he didn't think the brakes were really dangerous. Besides, he figured if someone else could handle that forklift, so could he. With that tragic decision, Gil Greenlee joined the Risk Takers. In the world we live in, a lot of people take risks. Some are taken for excitement, challenge, or fun. Some are taken for fame or fortune. And some are an inevitable part of certain jobs in the 20th century. But today, we're talking about a whole other category of risk takers whose injuries and deaths have nothing to do with money or fun. And they certainly aren't an inevitable part of their jobs in the 20th century. We're talking about people who put their feet, hands, and hearing at risk, who use chairs instead of proper stools or ladders, who fail to wear hard hats or safety glasses, or lock out their power sources, who run on the job, remove safety devices, ignore safety warnings, take drugs, endanger their backs by lifting improperly, or who endanger their lives by failing to use their safety belts. People like postal driver Jerry DeVries, who decided one day that wearing his safety belt was inconvenient.
Yeah, I have a delivery route in a real quiet residential area. And even though it's a strict rule of the Postal Service that we have to keep our safety belts on all the time when the vehicle is moving, I sometimes take mine off because it's a lot of trouble to wear it when I have to keep getting in and out of the Jeep. Anyhow, that one day, I was delivering the mail like always, when a car came roaring out of nowhere, and that's the last thing I remember. Really embarrassing thing is, the police said I probably would have been all right if I had been wearing my safety belt and had my door closed in the intersection.
An unnecessary risk, taken for an unimportant reason. And the unfortunate thing is that most people who take risks and get hurt really know better. Like the construction worker who poured gasoline into a hot engine. Or the machinist who removed his safety glasses because he said they were uncomfortable. Or the gas line worker who thought he could get away with working in an unshored trench because, as he told his friends,
I'm only going to be in there a few minutes.
But still, millions of people are killed and injured because they gamble with unnecessary risks, as safety specialists know so well.
Unfortunately, everybody takes risks sometimes, but nobody takes risks all the time. And some people are just more liable to take risks at certain times of the day than others. Risk-taking really increases if you're tired, angry, hungry, or maybe you're just in a hurry. And it really increases if you've been taking drugs or if you've been drinking, because then, well, then your judgment's been badly affected.
If you could scan the brains of representative risk-takers to discover why they take risks, you'd find reasons like these very much alive inside their minds.
Taking risks can save time.
Taking risks can make the job easier.
I'm not afraid to take risks.
I won't get hurt.
Or most often of all,
I can get away with it.
The fact is that most people just don't believe that anything bad will happen to them. The construction worker who poured gasoline into the hot engine knew it wouldn't explode. The machinist who endangered his eyes didn't think he'd get hit with flying chips. The gas line worker alone in the unshored trench knew it wouldn't collapse. And the postal driver was sure he could drive his Jeep safely without his seatbelt. In fact, almost everyone injured from risk-taking was sure they could get away with it that one time. Nobody takes an intentional risk expecting to get hurt. And they're not only convinced they'll get away with it, a lot of them actually think they'll get some kind of reward out of it. As the postal driver said.
I thought it would be more convenient the way I did it.
As the injured machinist said.
I thought I'd be more comfortable without my glasses, that's all.
As the burned construction worker said.
I figured it would be faster the way I did it.
And as Gil Greenlee, the forklift driver, was reported to have said.
I didn't have time to get the brakes fixed. Anyhow, it was faster and less work just to keep going.
Faster, less work, easier, more comfortable. But the problem is that the assumed rewards are so vastly outweighed by the possible consequences of the risk. No thinking person would trade a fractured skull for the comfort of going without a hard hat. Or a fractured hip for the convenience of using an office chair as a ladder. Or possible death because it was fun to ignore the rules for safety around heavy equipment. Because As those familiar with Gil Greenley's case were reminded so tragically, the consequences of risks always exceed their imagined rewards.
But because not every risk has a bad outcome, the risk takers are encouraged to take new risks, simply because they got away with the last one.
The whole thing becomes a game of risk roulette, where the winners never win anything important, and the losers too often lose their lives. In risk roulette, if you land on a green space, you got away with it that time. If you land on the yellow, it's a minor injury. If you land on the red, a major injury. If you land on this space, a fatality. And because it's a brand new spin of the wheel every time a risk is taken, the odds of a bad outcome increase the more you play. And while there are more green spaces than the others, and while some may get away with their gamble for several spins, you just never know where the ball will fall. Do you?
And the rules of risk roulette apply equally to those who take their risks unknowingly, simply because they're careless or daydreaming, or maybe they might just not recognize their unsafe acts as risks at all.
It just doesn't occur to some people that unbalancing a file cabinet is dangerous, or running through slippery areas, or jumping off a loading dock, or using tools improperly, whether on the job or at home, where literally hundreds of hazards lie in wait to sabotage the risk takers who fail to recognize the danger. And the results can range from saw cuts to slips and falls and serious injury. Part of the problem is that people who do a job many times tend to get overconfident, careless, and to forget the risks their job involves. The lineman who works with high voltage may not get overconfident as soon as the worker who pounds nails. But even when you're working with 21,000 volts, familiarity can breed carelessness. And because the outcome of risk roulette is so often tragic, it's vital for people to consider the consequences before they play. And in that tiny second, before they decide to endanger their feet and ears, use chairs as ladders, work without hard hats or safety glasses, run on the job, ignore safety warnings, lift improperly, drive without safety belts, drive a forklift with faulty brakes or whatever, they should consider the possibility of an accident and injury by asking themselves to, Suppose I fall. Suppose I injure my head. Suppose I blind my eye. Suppose I trip. Suppose I crush my hand. Suppose I injure my back. Suppose I crash with another car. Then, they should balance those serious consequences against such unimportant rewards as a few seconds saved versus injury or death. Finally, at work or at home, they should remember they're about to gamble on the deadly game of risk roulette, and to consider that the ball could drop in the green, the yellow, the red, or in the skull this very time. Which brings us back to Gil Greenley, the forklift driver.
Hey, come on, Eddie. Snap it up, or you'll make us late to your own bachelor party.
Hey, take it easy, Gil. We'll get there all right.
Gil knew his brakes were defective that day. In fact, the investigation showed that he commented on it to several of his fellow workers. But he kept on driving his forklift anyhow. In part because he had a reputation as a pretty macho guy who had to get the job done.
All right, move it out, buddy.
And to show off for his friends, like young Eddie Jones.
Hey, Tony, out of the way!
So, there you had a man who knew he was taking a risk, but for reasons of his own, he kept right on taking it. But at 3:15 on the afternoon of Friday, December the 11th, Gil Greenlee's game of Risk Roulette came to a deadly end.
Hey, watch out! I can't stop this thing! Man, that was close. You guys see that? I'd have gone off the dock if I hadn't hit those boxes.
Hey, nice job here, Greenlee.
Yeah, how about that?
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, but I'm not sure about the boxes.
Yeah, I think you just
That was it. End of the game. But ironically, not for Gil Greenlee. Because, you see, it sometimes happens that the victim of a risk-taker is an innocent bystander. In this case, a good friend who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Hey, anybody see Eddie? Eddie, where are you? Eddie!
Case history of a risk-taker whose rewards hardly equaled the consequences of his unsafe act.
Wow, so great. The footage of the mailman or mail carrier person going slow motion. Something else. And then falling down the stairs and all that. Really amazing film. And the guy who's working on the power line in the giant explosion. Visually very captivating and fascinating. I know that some of you... How do I want to segue to this? This is... Anyways, this film is made for kids and actually teaches a pretty important life skill. It kind of teaches about numbers and math, but it's all about the life skill. Get this down. You can get a job in retail. Here's Making Change.
I'd like to buy a piece of candy, but I don't have enough money. I'd like to have one too, but all I have is a penny. That's all I have. And we need 3 pennies. What can we do?
Oh, maybe I can help. Hi, I'm Mr. Moneykeeper. My business is money.
Wow, I didn't know a coin purse could talk.
Well, you're looking at one. Did I hear you say you need another penny?
Yes, Mr. Moneykeeper. We want to buy a piece of candy, but we don't have enough money.
Well, I can fix that.
Golly, Mr. Moneykeeper, you're a real magician.
That I am. So, let's buy the whole bowl and have a party.
Phew, that's a lot of pennies. It'll take a while if we have to count all of them.
Ordinarily it would, but I've invented a set of coins that make counting money and making change ever so much easier.
Will you show us your invention, Mr. Moneykeeper?
Of course, soon as I get rid of these pennies. There, the first coin I invented was a nickel. A nickel is worth 5 cents, the same as 5 pennies. You count them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see. A nickel takes the place of 5 pennies. So a nickel must save a lot of counting.
My next coin is the dime. A dime is worth 10 cents, the same as 2 nickels or 10 pennies.
Well, a dime may be small, but it's a lot faster than having to count out 10 pennies.
My third coin is the quarter. A quarter is worth 25 cents, the same as 2 dimes and a nickel, or 5 nickels, or 25 pennies.
Wow, it does take a lot of pennies to match a quarter.
That's why I invented it. My last coin has the value of 2 quarters, or 5 dimes, or 10 nickels, or 50 pennies. That's why I call it my 50-cent piece. But I have another name for it.
Tell us what it is, Mr. Moneykeeper.
It's $half.
Is that because the 50-cent piece is worth 50 cents, while a dollar is worth 100 cents?
You're exactly right.
And I see something else, Mr. Moneykeeper. When you're counting nickels, you're really counting by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20.
Then counting dimes must be like counting by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50.
Right you are. And that reminds me. A long time ago, I invented this dollar coin. It's worth 100 cents. But it's so seldom used nowadays that I nearly forgot about it.
Well, if the larger coins save so much counting, why do we bother with the smaller ones?
Oh, they're useful, too. Let me demonstrate. Let's make change for this pen. You count as I set out the coins.
Okay, that's a quarter.
A quarter is worth 25 cents.
That's a dime.
It's worth 10 cents. It brings the amount up to 35 cents.
Another dime makes it 45 cents.
And 4 pennies makes it a total of 49 cents.
I see what you mean, Mr. Moneykeeper. You can't always make the right change without the smaller coins.
Exactly.
Then I want to buy this doll and make the change myself. I'll start with a quarter.
That's 25 cents.
Another quarter.
That's 50 cents.
A dime.
60 cents.
Another dime.
70 cents.
A nickel.
75 cents.
And 3 pennies.
That's 78 cents, all right. But I bet I can do it faster. You count this time. Here goes.
50 cents. 75 cents. 76, 77, 78 cents.
See? Nothing to it.
So it makes no difference which coins you use as long as they add up to the right amount.
Then the more money each coin stands for, the less counting you have to do?
Of course.
But suppose I want to buy this 43-cent game, and all I have is a 50-cent piece. Now what happens?
No problem. Once you understand making change, a clerk in a store does it all the time.
Okay, I'm the clerk, and a man gives me a 50-cent piece. What do I do now?
That's easy. First, name the price, 43 cents. Then, from 43 cents, count out whatever coins you need to make 50 cents.
Okay, let me try it. The price is 43 cents. 44 cents, 45 cents, and a nickel makes 50 cents.
So that's the change. 2 pennies and a nickel.
Good work, both of you. Now, you be the clerk. Someone's bought this engine and has given you a dollar bill. What change will you give back to him?
Well, the price is 83 cents. So, it's 84 cents, 85 cents, a nickel is 90 cents, and a dime makes 100 cents, or a dollar. The change is 2 pennies, a nickel, and a dime, or 17 cents.
Making change is a lot of fun when you understand it, Mr. Moneykeeper.
And being good at it can save you a lot of time and trouble, believe me.
I got lured into this false sense of security with Hal Smith's voice. So Hal Smith is the money keeper / I guess money inventor. I mean, he says he figured out ways to make new types of coins. Hal Smith, of course, Otis the Drunk from the Andy Griffith Show, and narrator of scores and scores of educational films that I have, and he actually shows up in some of them. I was looking to see if I had any scanned that I could show later this week, but I don't think I have. There's this whole series that he did where he works at a fix-it shop. He's a fix-it guy, and he rhymes. It's pretty horrible. I mean, some of the stuff he does. He did Verb Star, which I think between Verb Star and there was a basketball film shown, I think those had the most negative response of any of the films I've shown in these 8.5 weeks that we've been doing this. Verb Star is just, it's so bad. It's all about verb tenses and really bad, weird puppets. Anyway, so Hal Smith, look him up. He also, I think he did Goofy's voice later on in Goofy's career, and just in a bunch of stuff. Great character actor. So what time do we have? All right. I could go a couple of different ways with this. This one's for the ladies. This film is made by, what is the company? You'd think I'd be better prepared for this, having done this 8.5 weeks. It is not Mop and Glow. It's spray, dust stuff. Anyways, you'll see. They call themselves the something of family of products. And it's basically the company that made all the spray cleaners, aerosol spray cleaners. And so this film it looks to be like a ladies show, like an afternoon ladies show where it gives helpful hints, household hints, and it has a special guest, and there's a cooking segment, and et cetera, et cetera. It's called Paging Women, and is it Armstrong? No. Anyways, we'll find out within minutes. But this is kind of a fascinating thing that I ran across when I digitized a bunch of TV commercials for an archive at Duke University, and this was part of that. And then I found a copy of it myself and was very excited to share it with you. So here's Paging Women.
In the USA, the start of a woman's day, but only the start, because a woman is all things to all people. Clerk of the coffee, valet, presser, doctor of letters, and bills. Assistant chief, cook, bottle washer, artist, floor walker, purchasing agent, the heart and center of the home and of the family. To her, this program is dedicated. Johnson's Wax presents your hostess, Vivian Farrar.
Hello. Welcome to Paging Women. Because we women are very busy people, and because our homes are very important places, we're going to turn to our show today without wasting a minute. We're here to tell you about easier and better ways to make your home more pleasant. No matter what its size, a home covers a great roof. It's what you put inside your home, and the way you put it together, that give it its warmth and its character. And so today we're going to meet one of the most famous interior designers in the country. Mr. William Paulman. Mr. Paulman is going to tell us how to make a living room more exciting and more livable. And we're going to see how an ordinary house plant can be taught to be its own babysitter when you're away on a trip. And then we're going to meet famous author and actor Mr. Walter Slezak. He's going to give us some of his cooking secrets. And then we're going to talk about women's clothes, your own included. And here is the beautiful Venus de Milo. You know, it's said that she has the classic figure. And in addition, this is a classic work of art because its basic, simple lines have withstood the test of time. The fashions we're going to see today are classics, too, because they're styles that will withstand the test of time. To show them to their very best advantage, we've picked a beautiful building that is a modern classic. The new TWA terminal at the New York International Airport, with these smooth, clean lines, is a classic example of the best in modern architecture. This building is an example of how function and beauty can be perfectly combined. And the suits we are going to show you today are not only timeless, but they prove a very important point. Every woman has her own figure, and there is a correct cut of clothing to enhance each figure. In addition, we're going to give you tips on color, line, and texture in each of 3 basic sizes to help you look your very best. This is a classic modern suit, good for almost any time, season, or place. And the things that make it that way are its simple lines and proportions that follow and enhance the natural shape. This suit will stay in style for a very long time. This particular fabric is a blue and white wool tweed with navy blue trim. It features a Peter Pan collar and bracelet-length sleeves. You're looking at the junior figure, and now here is the Mrs. figure. Her jacket is white. The skirt and the buttons are black, as is the tie at the neck. The fabric is silk and worsted. Regardless of which of the 3 basic figure types you are, this particular suit comes in the proper size and proportion to show your figure at its very best. And now here is the 3rd basic type, the woman's figure. This is a linen suit in a lovely rose wine shade, and there is a correct balance between the jacket and the skirt. The effect of each of these 3 suits is the same, beauty through keeping it simple. But now let's take a look at some of the ideas that can help you get the most out of your own figure through color, line, and texture. You'll notice that although our models are different sizes, and they look as though they're wearing different suits, they're actually all wearing the same suit, and so am I. With a few minor variations, it's a classic style by Jack Sarnoff, designed by Molly. You'll notice that the junior suit is all one color to give the illusion of greater height. You must look for the lighter or the medium tones to increase your height. The collar stands away from the neck to frame the face, and it's lovely with both long and short hair. Because the Missy's figure is the average ideal, and it can get away with almost anything, it's wearing contrasting colors today. You'll notice that the skirt is subtly shaped, not too tight. There are no gimmicks on this suit to put it out of fashion after 1 year. It just has a lovely, smooth shaping to it. Now, in the woman's figure, you'll notice that the line of the jacket blends with the silhouette of the skirt. The color of the fabric is darker, and the fabric itself has a flat or an unshiny finish to give a trimmer look to the figure. Now let's take a look at all three figures again. Remember, the essence of good fashion is simplicity. So if you look for an outfit that is basic and simple and timeless, you'll have a classic suit, and that means you'll have a good investment. These suits are just one example. Regardless of the price range in which you find it, a suit should be proportioned to fit your figure, whether it be junior, women's, or Mrs. The size number is not important, but the cut and the fit are. So look carefully, and you won't have to worry about fashion changes from year to year. Have you ever decided to turn your living room upside down and start all over again? Well, every once in a while I get that impulse, but it usually gets me into trouble. For one thing, I never know where to begin. For another, I find that many of the things I want just cost too much. That's why our special guest today is Mr. William Paulman, one of the world's outstanding interior designers. Hello, Mr. Paulman. We're delighted to have you with us.
I'm delighted to be here, Vivian. Thank you.
You're welcome. At the moment, William Paulman is designing the interiors of the new 800-room President Hotel in Hong Kong. In addition to that, he's doing 2 elegant ballrooms in the New York Hilton. Bill, let's get down to the main question. Is it possible to decorate tastefully and still stay within a modest budget?
Indeed it is.
How would you define good taste?
Well, taste is appreciation, stemming from knowledge and experience. I call it educated appreciation.
Can you give us some idea of what the very first step should be?
Well, I think you should analyze what you want out of the house. How are you going to use it? Who's going to live in it?
Do you have any special guideposts to arranging the furniture?
Well, there are 5 rather basic rules in room arrangement. I've brought these sketches along. While they're not typical, they do serve as an illustration of what I like to get across. The first thing is how to get in and out of a room, a traffic pattern. There is an entry here. There's room between the chairs to get to the sofa. There's plenty of room around this great lacquer table to get to this chair and this ottoman. And I think it's a rule that everyone should follow, is to study such a traffic arrangement in a house, in every room.
Not clutter the entrances and exits, in other words. Huh?
They should not.
Oh, this is a lovely room.
Well, that's another one of my points I like to bring out. There's a focal point. Every room should have 1, sometimes 2, but not too many. But this one focal point is in a bedroom is gained by using a very fancy headboard, rather Spanish in feeling, plus a large mirror and a group of 6 prints.
Mm-hmm. Could this be used in some other room or also beside the bedroom?
Of course it could. You could take the mirror and the 6 prints and put it over a credenza or a great chest and have the same effect.
Do you have trouble with some of your people wanting over-dramatic rooms?
We certainly do. We call those sort of knock-'em-dead rooms. And at first glance, you might possibly think this is one.
Oh, yeah.
But this was done for a couple who love to hunt. They go on safaris and they bring back things like these water buffalo skulls. But you see the traffic pattern is still good. But this room is very livable. It's for reading, eating, drinking, and even playing.
Can you fit a desk into a living room?
This table, when on and used as dining, could be a work area here. But in the next sketch,
here's the desk.
You will show the desk, find the desk, put in a window. It could be put flat against the window, but there's plenty of room. It doesn't spoil the traffic area by putting it at right angles to the window.
And now, how about the problem room? Let's say the long, narrow room.
The problem rooms are always with us, particularly if you were working in some of the new modern apartments. And, of course, some of the new houses have problem rooms, too. Mm-hmm. In this case, the problem was everything being horizontal, so we wanted a vertical treatment on the walls. They could be wallpaper panels, or they could be paintings. They could be Chinese panels, but used vertically. And you'll notice here, in this area, we use a vertical pattern on the curtain.
You know, today we have a sample room to test out all of your ideas. Shall we go take a look at it?
I'd like to very much.
Okay, just follow me. Well, here we are, Bill, in our sample room. Do you have any suggestions for us?
The sofa is so isolated. It's a pity it isn't closer to this chair so it would form a conversational group. And I find no focal points at all. It's pretty much a shambles.
I see.
Take the traffic pattern. I find this pretty cluttered, don't you?
Yes, I do. It looks as though you'd have to be a broken field runner to get through that.
Now look at our work area, right here, smack in the middle of the traffic pattern again. And also what disturbs me is the way that the pictures are all lined up horizontally to give the room a little bit longer look than it need have.
This, of course, is the incorrect way you've pointed out. How do we go about correcting it?
You want to see how it's done?
Oh, I'd love
Let's
to see.
take everything out.
All
Just
right.
clear the room.
Well, this certainly gives us a fresh start. Where do we begin, Bill?
Well, first, that long credenza, which was on that wall, I'd like to see at this end of the room.
All right.
A long piece of furniture like this usually makes a room appear wider.
Yes, it really does. Well, what's our next step?
Let's establish a conversational grouping. In this case, it becomes the focal point of the room.
All right. I bet everybody wishes they could move furniture this way, Bill. Oh, this arrangement is lovely.
And notice how the people on the sofa and in the chairs can converse easily. And we've added 2 open-back chairs to lend more airiness to the room, except this chair must be moved over to provide easy access to the sofa. You know, the traffic pattern must be kept.
Oh, yes, I remember that point well. And then this area rug kind of ties everything in. And this nice big cocktail table is right within everyone's reach. How about the desk, Bill? Where will that go?
I'd like to see it over there in the window area.
That desk not only looks better there, but it's right in the light from the window.
And it's out of the main area where one can concentrate.
Well, that's an important consideration. Now, how about our television set?
It would be best opposite the sofa so everyone could see. Let me show you.
Okay.
And you see we have broken the horizontal look of the wall with a vertical bookcase. And also note the splash of color of the chair. It breaks up the monotony of too much wood on that wall.
It looks very pretty there. What are we going to do, though, about all these pictures now that are off-center? Can we take care of those as easily as we took care of the
We
furniture?
certainly can. Let's just get rid of them. And now for a better arrangement. You see the new arrangement has more of a vertical appearance rather than that old scattered sort of horizontal look. And we do have a rather isolated work area in the desk. And we have, I think, a very successful conversational grouping here around the large cocktail table.
Well, the room looks lovely, Bill. Bill, we hear so much about how accessories give a room its personality. Can you tell us something about that?
I'd like to very much, because accessories give a room the atmosphere, the aura, particularly pertaining to the mistress of the house who dictates this sort of thing and who collects them. I'm a great believer in collecting nice objects, but they're not necessarily expensive, but they should be selected for their scale and their good looks, and they should have some quality about them, of course.
Have you anything else you'd like to tell us?
Yes, there's one thing I'd like very much to get across, that if ever in doubt, you're not quite sure, always keep it simple.
William Paulman, thank you so much for coming to visit with us today. You've given us some good basic hints on how to liven up our living room.
I've been happy being here, and I thank you very much for asking me.
Plants can be so beautiful around the house that they really are a very important part of better living. They bring in life and color, kind of bring nature right into the house. But they also bring problems along with them. However, fortunately with plant problems, they can be easily solved with just a little common sense and some expert advice. So today we're going to bring you the case histories of 3 typical housewives and their plant problems. Case history number 1, the case of anxious Anna. Anna is affectionate, loving, but she's terribly worried about her plants because she's going away on a 2-week trip and she just can't find a reliable babysitter for her little indoor garden. Well, you may not believe this, Anna, but this simple piece of cotton wicking is the best babysitter you can find for your plant. Now, after you've watered your plant, and be sure not to overwater, you wrap the piece of cotton wicking in the center with aluminum foil to prevent evaporation, and you put the exposed end in a quart of water like this, and insert the other end into the dirt of the plant. And presto, your plants will be watered while you're away. Now, if you don't have cotton wicking, you can use a piece of ordinary clothesline like this, provided you remove the sizing first. Oh, why, Anna, you look so much happier. I'm glad we were able to help you with your problems. And now let's take a look at case history number 2. It's the case of puzzled Pauline. You see, Pauline's plants seem to grow unevenly, and she just can't figure out why. Well, maybe it's because she forgets to turn her plants like this at regular intervals so that the light will equally hit all sides. Because you see, plants tend to grow toward the light, so if you don't keep turning them, you will have that problem. Why, Pauline, you look delighted. I'm glad that our simple idea was a help to you, Pauline. Now let's go on to our third case history. The case of cautious Carrie. Carrie is conscientious, sincere, but she's very sad because she just doesn't know how to cultivate her potted plant. Well, our experts tell us that you should loosen the soil of the plant as far away from the trunk of it as possible. Use a blunt fork or a dull pencil and cultivate just about an inch or so deep. Do this when the soil around the plant looks hard and crusty. Well, I hope that our staff experts have helped to solve some of your problems. I know that they've solved some of Carrie's because she looks so much happier. All of our case histories today have one common problem, and that is the question of what to do about bugs when they get on plants, even in the house. An aerosol house and garden type insecticide is the perfect answer, but it's important to the health of your plant that you follow the directions on the can carefully whenever you use one. Now be sure to hold the can 12 to 18 inches away from the plant, like this. It's the ideal treatment for an indoor plant. But don't hold the can closer to the leaves. Don't soak them, because most sprays are cold as they come from the spray opening, and you could freeze the plant. That's why, if you spray too close, the leaves may turn brown and shrivel after a day or so. Now let me demonstrate the correct way again. You'll notice that when I hold the can at the proper distance, this paper doesn't get wet, and neither does the plant, so there'll be no frostbite. But the bug-killing ingredients are on the leaves where they can get to work. Remember, if you can see that the plant leaves are soaking wet, you're too close, and you may be harming the plant. However, if that does happen, keep the plant watered. With the bugs gone, new green shoots may come along and save the day. There are so many products in aerosol cans these days that it's good to know how to get the most out of them. Let's take a look inside this spray-type aerosol can and see how it works. This is the product, and this is the compressed gas found inside all aerosols. It pushes down on the product and sends it up this little tube right out the spray opening in the button. Now, always try to hold the can as upright as possible, as the directions state, because if you don't, after you've used it for a while, this little dip tube might peek up out of the liquid, and then you'll just spray the gas. Many aerosols have a little dot on the can to show the way the spray opening should point. Now, sometimes after the can has been handled, this button turns around, and if the can is tilted when you press the button, you're likely to get no spray. If that happens, simply turn the button back to the marking dot, or if there is no dot, just give it about a half turn, and see if it doesn't spray. If you follow these ideas, you'll be getting the most for your money, and who doesn't want to do that? Why, Walter Slaysack, hello.
Why, Vivian, what an utter surprise.
Well, I see you've invaded our kitchen here and made yourself very much at home.
Yes, I plead guilty to that.
You know, you're also guilty of keeping me up half the night.
I have? When?
Reading your new bestseller, What Time is the Next Swan?
What time's the what?
What Time is the Next Swan?
Oh, What Time is the Next Swan? That wonderful, marvelous book.
Oh, an interesting, funny book. I enjoyed every word of it.
You and 60,000 other readers, I'm happy to say.
Well, good. And you're writing another?
Yes, I'm with book again. And this book will have something to do with food. I will unveil some of my more favorite recipes.
Oh, well, then that's why you're here in the kitchen.
Exactly. You see, I've discovered something. Most women make very good cooks, but very few men make great chefs. I happen to be one of them. I'm a tremendous chef. You see, it is not a coincidence that all great restaurants hire men as chefs. They wear big, silly things on their head. I don't, because I don't need it.
You're very modest, Walter.
I am a modest man. I take pills.
What is your recipe today?
Today I'm going to cook Frankfurter goulash.
Frankfurter goulash? Well, I've heard of goulash, but with...
Don't blanch, my dear. Frankfurter goulash is an unusual goulash. You see, it doesn't matter if a humble ingredient like a Frankfurter goes in, as long as it is made with love, with affection, with a certain savoir-faire, and it will make a very, very aromatic dish.
Well, what goes into this aromatic dish, Walter?
Well, first of all, onion. Wonderful yellow onion. Then we have green peppers. 10 of those.
10? How many does this serve?
4, in my case 3. Grown up. Then we take tomatoes. Half a can of those. And then garlic. Garlic. Garlic? Oh, here.
Oh, I see you come prepared.
Every well-dressed man should wear garlic. Then the rest of your ingredients are shortening, Worcestershire sauce, a little cornstarch in case it gets too thin, paprika, Tabasco, salt, pepper.
And the Frankfurters?
Oh, the Frankfurters.
Even the very greatest chefs need a good retriever. Your hot dog, sir.
Thank you, my dear. Now, after the shortening, a few tablespoons is good and hot. We peel, cut, and fry the onions. After the onions turn brown, we add the garlic, 1 clove finely crushed. Sprinkle them with paprika and add our rough cut of green peppers. Then half a can of tomatoes. The seasoning. And finally we add our package of Frankfurters, which we slice, and we simmer for 4 or 5 minutes. And then we are ready to serve Frankfurter goulash, the true glorification of the lowly.
Oh, that smells marvelous. Looks delicious. May I have a taste?
No. You see, cooking is only a fragment of creating a masterpiece. The real artist becomes when you serve it properly in a romantic setting.
Walter, this is a masterpiece. It's absolutely delicious.
It's not only a masterpiece, it's even good. But you know what the most important thing is that whatever you serve with chic and elegance.
I agree. Walter, thank you so much for being with us today. We've enjoyed it immensely.
So did I.
Goodbye. Perhaps Walter Slazak has the right idea. No matter how lowly the ingredients of a dish may be, there's nothing to stop us from serving it with elegance and with romance. And who knows, maybe changing the whole atmosphere around the house. Well, we've been to some interesting places and we've met some interesting people today. And you know, there's a very wonderful booklet with tips on how to keep your home in top condition. It's called The Manual of Home Care. For your free copy, write to the Home Service Bureau, care of Johnson's Wax, Racine, Wisconsin. Our hope is that we've given you some new ideas on how to brighten your home and to make your busy days easier and more rewarding.
Paging Women has been brought to you by Johnson's Wax.
Wonderful. S.C. Johnson Wax. I put links in both the Facebook and the YouTube comments to a bunch of the commercials that we did for S.C. Johnson Wax products. And as my assistant at the time referred to, S.C. Johnson Wax's war against the ozone layer, because every possible thing you could imagine that would be aerosol would be something that, we're doing this now. Oh, we're doing this now. It's, so it wasn't just, furniture wax and dust, like a dust, anti-dust wax. There was also disinfectant. Also, there was air freshener. Also, there was weird foaming stuff, cleanser. a wide variety of different things. So really fascinating. And this film is an interesting little niche. Somebody pointed out in the comments, this is probably something that was sent to TV stations for free content, and sure enough, it was. I'm guaranteed it was. It was also probably shown at ladies groups, probably shown at fairs, conventions, etc. It's a wonderful piece, and actually, why I like it is it kind of captures. You get to see the TWA terminal, like when it just opened in the early '60s, and you get to see who was a celebrity at that time, and you get to see kind of a sense of style and how we talk about these things now versus then. That's why I collect these films and why I delight in showing them to you. So thanks so much for tuning in today. We almost didn't make it because we had a power outage about 30 minutes before I got started. So that made me think that I might need to do a backup show and have it uploaded just in case. I'll have to figure that out. But thanks again so much for your comments and for your eyeballs. And this is why we do what we do. If you like what you saw, avgeeks.com. You can also donate at Patreon, which is a great place to donate. And that money will go towards buying films and buying splicing tape and buying Ethernet cables and stuff like that. All this weird little stuff that we keep finding out that we need. Everybody stay safe. I hope that you have good weather. It's kind of overcast here in Raleigh, but if it is good, try to get out and get some vitamin D in your body. We will see you again tomorrow. Take care.